What's going on? It's Jason Heath, and Lauren Pierce has just put out a wonderful book of etudes titled Basstudes. Love the title. And you know, I've never gotten into etudes on this channel. I've been meaning to for years, so this is a great opportunity to sit down and chat with Lauren, go through a book, play through some of these, and learn about how etudes can bridge that gap between technique and repertoire. This book is available in our sheet music store. The link in the description below. Let's dive in. When did this idea pop into your head, and how'd this sort of project get started?
Well, it actually started last summer. I had always wanted to compose, but I never had. And it was something that was always like in the back of my mind. And a lot of my lovely followers and audience members have said, oh, you should write, you should compose. And I sort of vacillated between, being very defensive, like, I can't do that. And then also, saying like, yeah, I should, I'm very much a believer that anyone can do anything that they want. I approached it like I do most things, where I was like, well, what if I just set aside like an hour or 2 hours every morning to just write and just noodle? I really liked the idea of having an angle of education for it, because I felt like, etudes can be anything, really. One thing that they can be is like focused around a specific technique. And so I felt like that would help me creatively just to kind of get started. I didn't really know where to get started. And so I did that. For, a couple months, I want to say, every day, instead of my immediate, practicing, which I normally do, I reserved that time for composing. And I normally was writing at the instrument. And, what came out was all the etudes that you see in the book.
And etudes are such an important part of one's musicianship and musical development, but there's something that can be overlooked. I know a lot of bass players tend to overlook etudes. I've been meaning to do a video about etudes for years on the channel, and I'll do more if you're interested.
The audio guide, that's something that I was really excited about with this project. I've toyed with the idea of an audio practice guide in many different forms. And this seemed like a really cool way to experiment with that and see if people resonate with it.
I wrote this piece thinking of a grand, broad piece of music like the Gates of Kiev or Nimrod. The main focus for this one is the use of bow weight or pressure and how that changes depending on different factors like left-hand position, the string being played, note speed, dynamic, etc.
And we got fingerings, and we've got dynamics, and all sorts of good stuff.
I was thinking, well, I could do something similar that I did with the scales book, where I had a little introduction before every single chapter. In this case, it could be before every single etude, and that could explain what to focus on and all of that. But then I kind of thought, what a great opportunity to instead try this new format of an audio guide before every single etude.
It's hotter than hell's half acre. I can't even tell you how many times I heard that growing up in the South. And I just really liked that imagery for a piece like this one that was fast, a little mischievous, and just kind of wild.
We've got this down up that looks like kind of a recurring theme throughout this one. Nice. Try this. Hell's Half Acre.
It's just a short snippet, I really worried I was going to be talking for like 10 minutes on every single etude, but I think I kept it pretty well contained, where, it's just like, this is my intention for this etude. This is how I would practice it. These are things to keep in mind.
In this etude, your job is to focus on bow weight and bow distribution. I'll talk about that more in a second, but first I wanted to mention the different ways you can play this in terms of bow direction and patterns. A large portion of this etude is made up of the same rhythm, bum-ba-da-bum-bum-bum-ba-da-bum-bum. I've written in bowings in my annotated part, but you've actually got two options here. You can bow it as it comes, so the second half of the measure starts up bow, or you can do double up on beats 2 and 4 and practice hooked bowings.
the titles and also the title of my books, like Scale, Scale, Scale is not a serious title, it's like, it's ridiculous. And, Basstudes obviously is not very serious either. And I really like that. I just like that sort of, call it tongue in cheek or just kind of like fun and funny outlook on things. And so I knew that I wanted to have like silly titles for these etudes. And I'm going to be honest, the very first etude, Pressure, I hardly know it. That one came that one came to my head before I ever wrote anything. And I was so proud of it. I was like, well, I have to write an etude and just center it around this concept.
The main objective of this etude is string crossings. String crossings, especially ones like this where there's this large interval between two notes and it's a quick back and forth over and over, are really a study in the triangle. Just to review, the triangle is the way that we create sound. Any sound. Whether we like that sound or not, it's all made up of a ratio of bow weight, placement, and speed. The way we change our sound to fit whatever dynamic, articulation, or general quality of sound is by manipulating the ratio in the triangle. Each note on the fingerboard is going to have a different triangle. That's before you even consider the changes in articulation or dynamics.
And this is one of the cool things about having the option to use Lauren's fingerings or do your own. I'm a fan of low thumb position here, so you could do the same thing like with the thumb. But it's also useful in some contexts. You want to be able to do a pivot like this or go so like. Great to be able to practice both.
If I get an edition of somebody's that has fingering and it, not as much bowings, but fingerings especially, even if they have fingerings written already, I always write my own. And I think I talk about this in the audio guide that no matter what, just make a decision about your fingerings. Like that should be step number one. And if those are my fingerings or your own fingerings, I don't care. But make a decision, because a lot of times, I've certainly been this person where I'm sort of like wishy-washy, I don't like make a commitment to like one fingering, even if I write it down, mentally, I'm like, oh, whatever. And it doesn't, you don't learn things as well.
The main focus of this etude is triplet string crossings. And the reason it's the last one is because it is a real culmination of all the techniques you've been working on in this chapter. You got string crossings, you've got slurred string crossings, which adds a different level of intensity. You've got large intervals between notes, which means drastic changes in the triangle between each note. You got endurance. This sort of has it all.
Sort of Roboth-esque barrelage sort of playing. So we got that's cool. And really sensing the compounding effect working on these. They definitely build upon each other, and this is a great way to loosen up the bow arm, to be thinking about string crossings and thinking about being nice and free and relaxed, and you'll be able to take the lessons that you learn in these and the content that you explore and take it over to whatever pieces you happen to be working on.
The chapters, once I had that idea in mind, it was like, oh, okay, well, I think looking at the etudes that I had written, I could see, bowing, left hand, left and right coordination, which is kind of like, those are the big three chapters, I think, in playing the instrument. From there, that just like really lit a fire in me when I was thinking about how this etude book could work. Because I think it, at the time when I was like thinking about putting this together, it was just like, well, I just want to share etudes that I've written. And I hadn't quite thought yet about what the order would be. I thought maybe I'll do some vague, like easiest to hardest, but that's really hard to quantify. Like, I'm sure as people are going through the etudes in each chapter in my book, they'll think, oh, actually the one before it was a lot harder than the one I'm working on now, just because everyone's ability level is different and it's so varied how many abilities each one of us has, that it's hard to order things easiest to hardest. But the way that I sort of conceptualized ordering things, and I hope that it worked out this way, was what if we made it so that everything compounds on itself? So it's not like this is the easiest one and this is the hardest one. It's more like, okay, these are the foundational techniques. And then the next one is going to include these techniques and then also build on them.
I love this progressive approach that Lauren takes with these etudes. If you want to learn more about how to sequence things together like that in your bass playing, check out what we've got linked up. We'll see you there.